Imagine this. You've been adrift for days, the sun beating down, your throat raw from thirst. The bodies of your friends float around you in the dark water. This isn't a horror movie. This was the reality for the survivors of the French frigate Medusa, and it's a story far more terrifying than any fiction. In Betrayal, the Medusa, a state-of-the-art French naval vessel, set sail for Senegal. On board were nearly 400 people, from soldiers and settlers to the new governor of the colony. But the ship's captain, Viscount Hugues de Roy de Chaumeries, was a man of privilege, not experience. He hadn't commanded a ship in over 20 years, and his incompetence would prove fatal. Ignoring warnings from his more seasoned officers and relying on outdated maps, he steered the Medusa straight into a sandbank off the coast of modern-day Mauritania. The impact was catastrophic. The ship's hull splintered, and chaos erupted. The pride of the French Navy was stuck, a helpless victim of its captain's arrogance. As the ship began to break apart, it became clear that there weren't enough lifeboats for everyone. The captain, the governor, and the rest of the elite quickly claimed the best boats, leaving about 150 people stranded. A desperate plan was hatched. A massive makeshift raft would be built from the ship's masts and spars. It was a monstrous creation, roughly 65 feet long and 23 feet wide. The initial idea was for the lifeboats to tow this unwieldy raft to shore. But as soon as they were away from the wreck, the grim reality of their situation set in. The raft was barely seaworthy, and towing it was slowing them down. In an act of pure cold-hearted betrayal, the ropes were cut. The lifeboats, carrying the captain and the privileged, rowed away toward the horizon, abandoning 150 men, women, and even a child to their fate on a floating coffin in the middle of the Atlantic. The first night on the raft was a descent into madness. Overcrowded and unstable, the raft bucked violently in the waves. People on the edges were swept into the sea. Fights broke out over the driest spots near the center. Men, driven mad by fear and wine salvaged from the wreck, started a mutiny. In the darkness, amidst the crashing waves and pouring rain, swords and knives flashed. The loyal officers had to fight for their lives against the desperate mutineers. By the time the sun rose, the deck was slick with blood. Over 60 people were dead, either killed in the fighting or washed overboard during the night. And this was only the beginning. As the days crawled by, the situation grew more dire. Their meager supplies of few casks of wine and some soggy biscuits were quickly consumed or lost to the sea. The survivors were tortured by a relentless sun that blistered their skin and a thirst that drove them to drink their own urine and even seawater, which only hastened their delirium. The dead were initially given a somber burial at sea, but as starvation tightened its grip, the ultimate taboo was broken. To survive, the living had to turn on the dead. This wasn't a quick decision. It was a soul-crushing debate among starving men. But survival is a primal instinct. They began to cut flesh from the corpses of their fallen comrades, drying it on the mast to create a grotesque food source. They had become cannibals, not out of malice, but out of an unimaginable desperation to see one more sunrise. The raft had transformed from a symbol of hope into a floating butcher slab, a testament to the absolute collapse of civilization. Each sunrise revealed fewer survivors, the line between man and beast blurring with every agonizing day. After 13 days of unrelenting horror, on July 17th, a speck appeared on the horizon. It was a ship, the Argus. For the 15 remaining survivors, skeletal, sunburnt, and barely human, it was a miracle. The rescue was a harrowing sight. The men on the Argus were shocked by the scene of carnage and despair. The story of the raft, the betrayal, and the cannibalism became a massive scandal in France. It exposed the corruption and incompetence of the restored monarchy. The artist Tudor Jericho was so moved and horrified by the accounts of the survivors that he dedicated himself to immortalizing their ordeal. He interviewed them, studied corpses, and even had a model of the raft built in his studio. The result was his masterpiece, The Raft of the Medusa. The painting isn't just art, it's a raw, unflinching historical document. It captures the moment of faint hope, the desperation, the suffering, and the sheer human will to survive against all odds. It forces us to look into the abyss and ask ourselves what we might be capable of when stripped of everything. Thank you so much for watching. If this story fascinated you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest corners of history. See you next time.